searching, start streaming. Download the world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus, ahead of the curve.
ChatGPT. It can generate codes and human-like responses through text, write stories, and do a lot more.
I work in a newsroom with anchors, researchers and scriptwriters, graphic artists, producers, video editors, camera crew. But does a newsroom really need them today?
All of us have to think about unique and distinctive value addition that cannot be automated or repeated or replaced by a machine.
ChatGPT may kill many companies.
A human has to be in the loop with an ability to control this.
Dark Side of the Boom. Streaming now.
Today, she is the only smiling leader in Rajasthan. All eyes will be on her moves if the BJP returns to power.
Vasundhara Raje Scindia defied all the odds to become the first woman chief minister of Rajasthan.
She has the uncanny ability of striking rapport with all sections. That's why she is very popular in her constituency, not only in her constituency but in entire Rajasthan.
This and more, streaming on world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus. Download now.
Bangalore traffic is an example of something that has gone wrong with our system.
We have more than 50 flyovers in Bangalore city. If flyover is a solution to traffic problem, Bangalore should not have traffic problem.
According to TomTom Traffic Index 2022, Bangalore is ranked as the second worst city in the world when it comes to traffic.
The speed limit at the ORR is 80 kilometers per hour, but our vehicle has only moved 10 kilometers per hour.
What Bangalore needs is a surgery, but what we have been offered repeatedly are band-aids.
Only on the world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus, ahead of the curve. BrahMos, stealthy, lethal, precise. It flies at 3 times the speed of sound and cuts through a warship like a hot knife through butter. China's navy has threatened its neighbors, and they are turning to the BrahMos for protection. The warship killer. This and more, streaming on world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus. Download now. China won't let us rest easy on our borders, but they will keep flooding our markets. What does Xi Jinping really want?
I think he wants the Indian market, no doubt about it. It's really a matter of showing their dominance.
India's great Chinese conundrum.
Nobody can contain it. Not the United States, not China, not anybody else.
Frenemies. This and more, streaming on the world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus. Download now.
Hello everyone, Namaskar. I'm music composer Ricky Cage. 3-time Grammy Award winner and a United Nations Goodwill Ambassador. And you're watching me on First Person on News 9 Plus.
This and more, streaming now on the world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus. Download now.
Hello and welcome, I'm Suyash Maheshwari and you are watching Last Tick here on News 9, where we break down the day's action on the D Street. Now, Indian markets snapped their 3-day winning streak to end marginally lower on Monday, with the last tick for Nifty coming in at 21,418 mark. Sensex, on the other hand, gave away over 160 points but managed to close above 71,000 for the second straight session. Now, when it comes to the broader markets, the story was different. Remember, last week it was the mid-cap and the small-cap indices that were underperforming headliners. However, that was not the case today. Both mid-cap and the small-cap indices scaled a new record high, with the small-cap index even toppling the 15,000 mark for the very first time. However, the index could not hold above those levels and closed about 32 points shy of it. Now, Nifty, as you can see on your screen, closed down 0.18% at 21,434 mark, whereas Sensex was down 0.24% at 71,315 sort of levels. Nifty Midcap 100, which opened flat, added 0.22% in Monday's trade and ended near the 45,700 mark. The Nifty Small Cap Index added over 0.5% and closed just shy, about 32 points shy of the 15,000 mark, which, by the way, again, it has toppled in intraday trade today. India VIX, the volatility index, closed near the 14 mark for the very first time since March. Now, this particularly could spell troubles for the bulls, so perhaps we should keep an eye out for that. Overall, today's session was primarily about consolidation, which in a lot of ways is desirable for the market participants, especially after the big rally that we have seen play out in the last couple of weeks, where Nifty has added over 6% in that time period. Now, coming back to today's session, after the initial dip, Nifty managed to defend 21,400 for the majority of the session. Now, that becomes a crucial support for the index in the near term. Support 2 comes in at 21,365 mark, which was the intraday low today. On the upside, Nifty today was seen facing resistance around the 21,450 levels. Now, a significant close above that could perhaps open doors for 21,600 levels, as indicated by the experts. Moving on to sectors, Nifty Bank, which, by the way, remember, was a laggard for the majority of 2023 but has been performing in December. The index has rallied by over 8% so far month to date, and that index particularly saw some profit booking as it closed down over 0.5% below the 48,000 mark, which, by the way, it had conquered for the very first time on Friday's session. Nifty IT2 succumbed to profit taking. The index had surged about 11% in the last 2 weeks. Today we saw some profit booking and the index ended almost 0.3% lower. And realty index was another sector which faced some sort of a profit booking in today's trade, and it ended about 1% lower. On the other side, pharma and media names provided some support as both sectoral indices surged about 1 to 1.2% in today's trade. Metal was another sector which also added to today's gain. Now, despite the mild correction, the overall breadth of the market still is favoring the bulls. So, if you look at today's session, about 1,389 stocks advanced on NSE versus a decline in 1,176 shares. So, let's also bring on board Mr. Amit Gupta, founder at Fintech Capital. Hi Amit, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us here on News 9. So, a lot of experts that we have been talking to, they are indicating that market participants are using this rally in the last couple of, in the last month and a half to build, long-term portfolios, the stocks that they will hold in the next 5 to 10 years. Is that the mindset of the clients that you are handling?
No, I mean, if somebody does have a 5 to 10 year view, then, it makes sense to create a portfolio which is going to last that long. A lot of things are going India's way. The micro conditions have significantly improved. There is a policy continuation anticipated in the market in terms of the government and its economic actions. Then temporarily you have this fall in oil prices and the US bond yield. So things are looking good for India. So if somebody wants to create wealth and from a long term perspective, things still make sense to create a medium to long term portfolio. But at the same time, I think the expectations in the near term are quite high, which, when I say expectations, I mean in terms of returns. But that may or may not materialize immediately because of the sharp rallies which we have seen, especially in the small and the mid cap space. I think large cap space is still looking much better. But in small cap and mid caps, one needs to be very stock specific. There are certain specific spaces which look attractive, but valuation wise, I think large cap space looks both undervalued and sort of underweight also in a lot of portfolios.
All right. So, Amit, perhaps the ideal strategy, at least in the near term, in the short term, over the next couple of months, would perhaps be to focus on large caps rather than mid and small caps.
Yeah, I would think so. But at the same time, it's not that there are no opportunities in the small cap and mid cap space. It's just that the short term returns may not come, especially if you are in a sort of over-owned sector or a sector which has run up very sharply over the past 6 to 12 months. So some sectors like defense, capital goods, railways, PSU banks, there I think one can sort of avoid or at least trim down the position, have very low weightage allocations into these sectors, and look for contra opportunities in chemicals, in pharma, API, and even IT now for that matter. And create the portfolio according to that. So I think it's still a very stock specific market. And large caps obviously haven't given that great return over the past two years. In fact, if you look, if you remove the rally of the last 2 weeks, then it has hardly given any return, about 4-5% over the past 2 years. So I think the trend is more towards large caps in the short term. And if somebody wants to invest into a wealth generation point of view, then I think mid cap and the small cap, but selectively.
All right. Now, Amit, as you rightly pointed out, this rally has been rather, about sector rotation. First, it was the auto stocks, then it was the banking stocks, and now we are seeing IT stocks joining that rally. Any particular sector, where you have added positions or lightened positions in this run-up since we have seen from October lows?
No, in the last 2 weeks, we have actually reduced the positions. Trimmed a lot of the stocks which have run sharply. We were positioned for in renewable space a lot, in the clean energy space, and a few of those stocks have really run up very fast in very short periods of time. And these power finances, for example, we were there, but this morning we have exited one of the power finances stocks as well in our strategy. So I think the newer opportunities looks less and less. Having said that, I think pharma looks very good from a medium to short term point of view. There are a lot of headwinds which were there from China dumping or the prices, raw material prices going up. That has been solved in the past, 3 to 6 months. And I think they may not give you a multi-bagger returns in a very short period of time. But I think, somebody who's looking to grow the portfolio at 20-25%, I think that's a good space to be in and start building positions. I think a lot of stocks there are still very reasonably valued.
Now, Amit, the primary market is the one that's buzzing. We have 8 IPOs lined up for this week. And, 2 of them, namely Muthoot Microfin and Suraj Estate Developers, have opened for subscription today. 2 questions here. So, should investors perhaps, subscribe to these IPOs? And if you only had funds for one, which one would you pick?
So, I mean, I don't want to make a recommendation here, but, obviously the Muthoot Microfinance that comes to be a part of the legacy Muthoot Papachal Group That's almost a 40-year-old institution. It's a microfinance institution which provides microloans to women customers, primarily for income generation purpose. It focuses on the rural regions, and we know that a little bit of stress is going on to that. So the book is also growing at almost 25% in the over the past couple of years post-COVID phase. Uh, and they have a very large market share in Kerala and Tamil Nadu. I think they're largest in Kerala, and even in Tamil Nadu they have almost 16% market share. The interesting part is that even in the anchor investors, Muthoot Corp, which is a holding company, they have actually given shares of 10%. So that shows that even the promoters have skin in the game. It's just not a OFS kind of a situation where promoters want to dump the shares to other participants in the IPO. There is some sort of a skin in the game in for Muthoot Microfinance. It's a A plus credit rating, stable, given by CRISIL. So my sense is that if they are able to manage the cost of funding in the next 3 to 6 months, the stock looks good from a listing point of view also, and from a medium-term perspective as well.
Now, Amit, we only have 30 seconds. If you could help us understand, can the markets perhaps scale 22,000? Can Nifty scale 22,000 by the year's end?
So, I mean, year-end targets are always very dicey. I think 2 weeks ago, nobody thought we'll cross 21,500 also. But having said that, I think the momentum is still with the markets, even though in the post-FOMC week, the volumes really dry up. But even if you look at today's market, even though Nifty did not do much and there was some sort of consolidation, there were a lot of stocks in the broader markets which were up sharply. So what happens is towards the end, all these foreign brokerages, they have to do, they have to show NAVs on the 31st December price. And a lot of bonuses are also attached to that. So we'll see a lot of rotation happening in the broader markets. And given that the valuations are much more cheaper in the large cap space, we can also see Nifty momentum catching up next week, especially when the expiry is there. So I will not be surprised if we actually cross 22,000. In fact, a couple of technical studies also show that at 2230, 2250 is sort of one of the technical levels which we are also looking at internally.
Right.
So it is entirely possible that we can cross 22,000. The timing is always a little dicey, whether it's end of December or early January.
All right, 22,000 is on the cards, whether it's end of December or early in January. But that's Amit Gupta for you. Thank you, sir, for joining us here on Last Tick. Always a pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you, Suresh.
But with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Last Tick. But stay with us as we'll be back with Business Plus after this short commercial break.
वर्ष 2070 तक भारत नेट जीरो का लक्ष्य हासिल करेगा.
There is certainly a wall of capital coming into the clean tech, climate tech space, not just in India but across the world.
This and more, streaming on world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus. Download now.
Hello and welcome. You are watching Business Plus here on News 9 Live. I'm Krishna Kumar and joining me in the studio is Karthik Malhotra. Karthik, thank you so much for taking time out to be with us. Thanks, and he's here because we have an important story that we're taking up on this edition of Business Plus. And that has to do with the new telecom bill that has been tabled by the Indian government in the parliament. It might not have been passed as yet, but the fact that it's been tabled is important because we need to understand what this new telecom bill is all about. All the talk was around, will all the OTT platforms, Netflix, Amazon Prime and the like, will they be brought under the new telecom bill? What are the contents of this new telecom bill? Because bear in mind, the previous legislation was the Indian Telegraph Act, of course, with many amendments, but this Indian Telegraph Act alone is more than 138 years old. So this is a much needed legislation. The only question is how good is it going to be? Karthik, of course, the headline is always about, will now Netflix and Amazon Prime or any OTT player, will they come under the regulations of the new telecom policy of India? But the other question is what all will be under the ambit of this new telecom bill, if not the OTT players?
So I think the OTT players, as we see them as the streaming giants, were not likely to be included in the telecom bill, but the OTT services which offer you connectivity, audio-visual connectivity, the likes of WhatsApp, the likes of Skype, Zoom, etc. These were in the grey area, and the understanding was that the new telecom bill, in fact, when it was cleared by the cabinet in the month of August, these did make it to the draft. Now the question is, are they still in the new bill which has been introduced in parliament? But interestingly, what caught my attention, Krishna, was that it was tabled as a money bill or as a finance bill, which means that it could be passed in Lok Sabha without really a discussion in Rajya Sabha before the bill actually goes on to becoming an act. Of course, this bill is likely to give the government a lot more power, and a lot more power when it comes to, killing internet, killing communication services anywhere in the country, in the interest of national security, as the bill states. Add to that allocation of spectrum. There may not be too much auctioning of spectrum by TRAI, etc., as we've seen in the past, and spectrum auctioning as well as any other facilities when it comes to launching or discarding or discontinuing of telecom services in the country would now be vested as full control with the government.
All right, and that also consequently means that the powers of the TRAI, the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, keeps going down, and more of it gets concentrated within the Indian government. We have Nikhil Pava and Kumardeep Banerjee joining us on this broadcast for more on that. Nikhil, I'll just come to you. Kumar wants to make a quick point before that. Kumar, go ahead.
Thank you, Krishna, and hello, Karthik. And I would begin on a very tangential note, and I would say that a game of cards consists, and if you have three Ks in a show, which is Krishna, Karthik and Kumar, what is going to, you might need to have an ace to trump it. So looking at the telecommunications bill as we look at it, and I fully agree with what Karthik says, that it has been introduced as a finance bill. It's not a money bill. We will have to really look into the clauses, and maybe my friend Nikhil, who would be joining in about 2 minutes, would be able to shed more light. Because if it is just a finance bill, then it will need a nod. If it is strictly a money bill, then maybe it won't need a nod. But if you ask me initial comments, telecommunications services as of now, as I read it, look too broad, and we need some more textual reference to it. But I will hand it over back to you guys in the studio, and my friend Nikhil to comment.
Nikhil, okay, let's then talk about the technicalities of it all. Then, the way the bill exists right now, what is being said about it, how do you view it? More importantly, the importance of it all. Look at where telecommunications have gone in the last 5 to 10 years. I mean, the pace of growth, there's no word to describe the pace of growth of telecommunications and OTT platforms. Tell us from your perspective, why is this bill important, and what kind of a bill do you think it should be?
Well, thanks, KK, and nice to see Kumar here as well. The way I see this is that this is a victory for telecom operators and a loss for the internet. So what you're doing is basically, and this is something that the Department of Telecom had done a consultation on last year, where they tried to cover everything, including broadcasting, cloud services, everything under the sun was sought to be brought under the definition of telecommunications, not just messaging like WhatsApp, etc. What they've managed to do is that changing the definition, they still achieve the same goal. And what this means is that the role of the Department of Telecom and the Telecommunications.
Right. We will reconnect with Nikhil. Nikhil, if you can hear us.
I can hear you. I'm sorry.
Please continue.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is the role of the Department of Telecom is going to expand in a manner that it gains control over the internet, because what this is going to do is any data communication services, data services are going to be brought under the Department of Telecom as a telecommunication service. Now, including email, messaging, cloud services. And so just the breadth of this bill is very, very worrying, because those are internet services essentially. So this is a new red tape that's going to come in, because only those services which are being authorized will be allowed to function. So this is the way I see it, is it's against an open internet market, it's against a global internet, it's against the idea of a digital India which wants everyone to participate in it, because now you'll have to go and get authorization from the Department of Telecommunication for everything. The other very interesting policy situation here is that the telecom regulator was doing a consultation on regulating OTT services on request of DOT. So even before they've come out with their recommendations, the ministers finalized and tabled this bill in Parliament. What is the role of the TRAI then? And it's really, when you've got a regulator, when you've given them a mandate to do something, why is the DOT now bypassing the regulator without its recommendations coming in? Lastly, there's a very worrying aspect of interception of messages. Now, end-to-end encrypted messages allow our communications to be private. What the bill does is it allows for a licensing framework and interception of messages, but it also allows for the government to request for a class of messages in case of not just national security issues, but also public order issues. And just the ability to snoop on conversations is going to become unfettered on messaging services as a whole. And there's already a case in the Supreme Court, so I don't think that issue is resolved yet. But I'll pause over here because there's a lot to discuss on this.
Fair enough. Nikhil, stay with us. Karthik, the quick question before we head into the break that I want to ask you is what was the need for, looking at a situation where TRAI has lesser powers and, and the government, the power gets concentrated in the hands of the government? Was it a matter of the fact that they got spooked by all the spectrum auction scams that emerged?
I don't think it is just that, Krishna. As I see it, I think there was this pressing demand from telcos out there and all the big ones saying that their sort of sunshine is being taken away by these OTT platforms.
Okay.
And by OTT, again, I mean the likes of WhatsApp or Signal, Telegram, Skype, Zoom, etc., which pretty much offered the same services as the telcos do. So the challenge really has been for the telcos to say that, why do we have to go through a regulator? Why do we have a TRAI, an overarching body, which tells us what to do, what not to do, and we've got to listen to it? So perhaps that could be one of the nudges that the government has used to perhaps, as Nikhil is saying, bypass the DOT, to bypass TRAI. But the point is it going to be all encompassing? Is it going to include all these OTT communication applications under its ambit or not? I think that fine print will really have to be read and understood well.
All right, we will be taking a short breather here. On that note, we will be back in just a bit. Don't go anywhere. Keep it with News 9 Live.
Pakistani spy agency ISI's sinister plan to target India. Training women to honey trap top civil and military officials. Counter honey trapping ops initiated by India. But gullible victims still caught in the web. Top military intelligence experts break down the web of deception. Colonel Hani Bakshi explains the phenomena of honey trap.
जहाँ पे भी आपको लगेगा, उनको लगेगा कि there is a person who is susceptible to women, who's making a lot of women friends on the social media. That is where they will make a spoof account and then start luring the person.
Colonel Pavitran Rajan decodes the psyche of the victim and the predator.
But when you go up the chain,
no one enforces it to people at the top. That disciplinary regime and the security regime is not enforced at the top. And they usually have a public profile where it is much more easier to approach that person.
A News 9 special on how modern technology has added teeth to the ancient spying tactic.
Our story takes you inside Pakistan's honey trap machine.
This and more, streaming on world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus. Download now.
Currently, the industry is facing a lot of challenges as far as demand is concerned. Basically, the US markets has slowed down because of high inflation.
So obviously, diamonds being a dream product, something which doesn't have a utility value or is seen as a luxury. So that obviously goes off your shopping list. That's the first item that will go off your shopping list, especially in recessionary trends.
That lab-grown diamonds are not mined, and they do away with the entire mining. So they save up on all the environmental damage that is associated with mining, and of course, the mining cost, which is why they're even more affordable.
People that is impacted by all these recessions are the artisans, are the people who work in this industry, right? But I think lab-grown diamond has allowed them to actually use their skills in the same product.
This and more, streaming on world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus. Download now.